Welcome to Classics You Slept Through, the book podcast where we read and discuss classic books. I'm your host, Kyle Davis, along with a girl who did not move overseas and then murder her rival, my sister Meredith. How's it going, Mare?
It's good. I don't have a rival anymore, though when I was in high school I did and used to have dreams that
Oh,
I would not murder, but vanquish, perhaps.
it's the less violent murdering. Is that what vanquish
Yeah,
is?
just like kick her legs out from under her and be like, "What?" And that was it.
It's definitely violent. Okay.
Well, it's not murder.
All right. Well, we're going to talk
Anyway.
about. If you haven't been following along, and this is your first episode, God help you, but we are going to be discussing a lot of murder today because we are finishing Wieland, or The Transformation, by Charles Brockden Brown.
Or Wieland, the
Or
transformation.
Wieland. I noticed that you and I definitely have just
Sorry,
flipped on
folks.
pronunciations, but you get it all on this podcast. So today we're talking about the final three chapters, 25 through 27, and then next episode we will wrap up the whole book, and just as a teaser, we'll have our next book ready for you guys. So tune in next time. But today, let's get into these chapters. Finish this thing off. So if you haven't been reading this book, I'm sorry, but we open chapter 25 with Clara. You know, we have this meta-narrative where she's writing us, I guess, letters about what is going on. She took a little break, but now she's getting back to her writing, and where she left in her story, Wieland, who has murdered his family, she has gone back to her home. She's confronted Carwin. She's gotten all the details from him on his biloquist powers. He can imitate sounds. And now Wieland, her brother, who has escaped from prison for, I guess, the third time now, has come, and he's going to kill her. And they've been having a little discussion, and she's been talking to him. So she's been trying to bring him back from the brink of madness, and as we open up 27 here, she tells us, look, I've been telling you this story. I gotta
25.
finish it. Or 25, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She says, look, I gotta finish this story before I die. So that kind of diffuses the tension. You know that she doesn't actually die here, but Wieland is confronting her. She thinks he's going to kill her. Her talk has kind of gotten through to him a little bit. He's sort of faltered in his resolve, and she thinks maybe I'm getting through. But she's still concerned. She still thinks he's going to attack, so she's got her knife on her little pen knife that she's been carrying through this thing. And Wieland does sort of relax, right? Like, he talks about, well, I did this thing, and Carwin must have prompted me to do it, and even though I know he must be a devil, God made him do it, so therefore my instructions are still from God, and I'm still pleased with what I did, and so I'm still completing my mission. So that's a little scary.
Yeah, this idea has come up twice in I guess in my life in reading. So I'm also reading Toni Morrison's Paradise, which has a bunch of religion in it. And then I saw some ridiculous thing on Reddit where they were talking about evil is also from God. And then they quoted some kind of scripture that said, "For I created good and evil," or whatever. And in Paradise, she's talking about how even if something God says comes through a demon, it doesn't matter because it is from God anyway. And it comes up in this. And I'd never even thought of or heard, hadn't really considered this concept before, but Wieland's all in. He's like, okay, so Carwin's a demon. He's horrible, except the fact that his message came from God and God made him. And so I'm good with it.
Right.
I'm still okay that I murdered my family.
Right. And therefore, I must finish the job and murder you, Clara.
Right.
So, he gives her a very nice 3-minute countdown. So
nice.
it was kind of him. And as time expires, then Clara ends the chapter. And, of course,
dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. But of course, as we know, she's writing this in the past, so we're in the future.
What I put out a quote from, I think it's this chapter. I'm pretty sure it's this chapter, because she has her little penknife, which we remember from other chapters she was going to use on Carwin, but then she was going to use it on herself, but then she couldn't, so she's going to throw herself out the window. Here, she thinks, well, I'll use it on my brother. I'll kill my brother to save myself. And she can't bring herself to do it. And she says, nothing but the subjection to danger and exposure to temptation can show us what we are. And she's referring to, by this test, like thinking she's going to kill her brother, I was now tried and found to be cowardly and rash. But I think that's interesting that she, and I've heard this, there's other quotes that are similar, that you don't really know who you are until you've been tested, either by danger, your life is in danger, or, I guess maybe someone's close to you, or that temptation is right in front of you. You can always say what you think you would do in a moment, but until that moment's there, you don't actually know.
Right.
And she thinks she's cowardly and rash, which I don't know.
Well, rash in that she thought she would do it, right? Like, I'm going to kill him. But cowardly in that she couldn't actually do it.
Yeah. Do you think that that's true? That only being presented with those things can actually tell you?
Oh, definitely.
What you are?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, you can talk a big game, but until you're put in that situation, I mean, you can relate it to sports. You can relate it to anything, right? They talk about who has the heart of a champion, who actually can rise to the occasion, right? Like, who has the ability to overcome limitations and still win. Like, you have extremely talented athletes who can't win it because they just don't have the right makeup, right? Like, they don't have the heart to will themselves to win. I mean, you have lesser athletes that can.
So you give that final push at the end of the race, or,
Sure. Yeah. Or you look at, combat or war or heroics, or, people you don't expect anything out of suddenly do something, they win a medal and save the unit and stuff, so I think history is replete with examples of people
like Forrest Gump,
the occasion. Sure,
right?
Exactly, just like Forrest Gump.
You would never think Forrest would continually run back into danger to save his people.
But he did, exactly.
But he did. I mean, he was looking for Bubba, but he saved people along the way.
Sure,
and nobody would think him to be someone who would do that.
Right.
I would not think. This is not a good example, but I generally don't think of myself as someone who like steps in and stops other people, or like inserts myself into situations if I'm not already given that authority. Like at work, cool, that's my job, I'll do that. At home, yes, I'll do that. Out and about, the grocery store or whatever, I'm like, not my place, not my thing, unless it's clearly, I think, unless it's clearly a right or a wrong and there's an injustice being done. And here's my example. You'll love it.
So some grocery store heroics?
No.
Okay.
Aquarium. So
close to a grocery store.
Right. At an aquarium, and this happened at the zoo too, but at an aquarium in Atlantic City years ago, someone like picked their foot up and like kicked a tank to like get the animal to do something.
As you do.
And I didn't even think about it. I was like, hey, don't do that.
Protecting the fish. they did not care, I'll tell you that much.
The same thing happened at the zoo in DC one year. Somebody had a banana and was holding it up to the primate enclosure, and the monkeys were like, I want, like they were trying to get it, and I was like, knock it off.
Look at you protecting the
I know.
caged animals. I'm surprised you didn't go back later and set them free.
That could be dangerous. Anyway, maybe that was my test.
There you go. You were found worthy.
All right. Anyway.
All right. So that takes us to 26. Clara and her brother start grappling and fighting. He's going to kill her when suddenly a voice tells him to hold. And so, he says, Wieland, this voice, obviously it's Carwin, we know, but the voice tells Wieland, be rational. And Wieland kind of comes back from the brink and he asks the voice, am I insane? And he says, yes, yes, Wieland, you are insane. And he becomes depressed. And finally, Chekhov's penknife goes off, and he kills himself with it. Um, so
Well,
now,
but Clara also asked, like she saw Carwin and she was like, "Help me out here, man." And he kind of walks away and she's like, "Oh, I'm alone." But he was actually, she says, like leaving to gather himself to do
yeah,
what you just described. And dude, that's some sympathy for Wieland here. I know he murdered his family, but he really, really, really thought that God told him to do it. And that, you know, if God told him to do it, then his family is waiting for him. He's doing what God wants him to do. He
right.
kills them. Then he gets to go be with them because he does love them.
And he says he hopes that they're better off and that they're doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now to be presented with like prank, just kidding. Like, yeah. I mean, what else do you do?
I mean, it's that sort of that idea that Uncle Cambridge said when Clara wanted to go see him in jail, and he said, "Look, if you leave him in his madness, because if you bring him back to
Yeah.
rationality, he's going to realize what he did, and it's going to crush him." And well, lo and behold, it does. You know, a little foreshadowing there. Once he's told to be rational, and yes, you were insane, and he's like, "What did I do? Like, I did this all for nothing. I thought I was
Oh
going to
my
get some
God.
kind of eternal reward for this, and now, dun dun dun."
That's not fair.
That was a little
Like,
bit of a cheat.
like,
I agree.
do you think like say Wyland gets to say exactly what he hopes exists after life exists? He gets there. Do you think he gets some sympathy? You think he's like, oh man, that was not fair of them. Like, not your fault.
Well,
Because we're gonna get to the end,
yeah,
and I have some thoughts about the very last like moral on the tail. But
right. I mean, you look at the story of you know, Abraham and Isaac, right? Like he's gonna sacrifice his son, and that's when he was gonna do it. Like God told him to do it, and so he was about to follow through, and God was just seeing if he would or not. And then at the last
what a
second,
dick.
yeah, last second, psych, hey, here's this goat. You can use that instead, right? So I guess it's sort of similar, you know, but Wieland didn't get the goat to, you know, take the place of his family. He thought God told him to do it, so he did. So I guess there is sort of precedent within religion. So I guess Wieland can be a little bit forgiven for believing that God would tell him to do that.
Yeah, right. There's precedent.
Yeah,
How's he supposed to know it's Carwin? There isn't precedent for, at least in his direct experience
right,
or reading, of someone who can throw his voice
right,
to different locations and perfectly mimic people that he hears. It's not just like he can mimic sounds like a bird. He can mimic exactly what Clara sounds like.
right.
And to the point where their most intimate friends and family think, no, that was you. I know it was you,
And he
but
could do
yet
it
you're
back and
here.
forth, savvy enough
Yeah.
to have a conversation with himself, with, you know, as though it were he and Clara,
Yeah.
to fool someone
So
who knows them intimately.
I feel like I don't know. Hot take. Maybe Wyland should be forgiven in the afterlife. Something.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps he is at the end because he realizes what he did. I don't know.
Hmm.
Interesting stuff. Well, that brings us to our final chapter, and yeah, this is an interesting one. Well, I guess I should say at the end of 26, Clara says she's going to stay in the house. Everybody tries to get her out. She says, "Nope, nope, nope. This is my family home. I'm staying here despite all the bad memories. I'm just going to live out my days as a hermit, eat, drink, sleep, but that's it, and I'm done."
And she wants to die. Like she fully expects she'll die.
Right. She wants to die in the house.
I will die. The gulf before me is inevitable and near. I will die. But then only when my tale is at an end. Hmm.
Right. So let's get to the end of that tale. So we get to chapter 27, and we start off, it's 3 years later now. So some time has
In
passed.
France.
In France. So she tells us, hey guys, I know the last time I wrote to you, Good friend that she is with us, right? Hasn't written to us in 3
Right.
years. But let me tell you let me catch you up on the last 3 years, right? It's her annual Christmas letter to us.
They've been bonkers.
Yes. So here's what happens. So after Wieland kills himself, Uncle Cambridge moves into the house with her, and she's depressed and she's bedridden, but he's kind of taking care of her and making sure she's eating and whatnot. And then she has this crazy dream where, she's standing on a cliff and there's smoke, and lo and behold, she wakes up and realizes, well, it's not just a dream, the house is on fire. And the thing burns down. One of her servants had left some embers in a barrel. They sparked. House burns down. Neighbors come, get a ladder, get her out. She's all right. But it kind of snaps her out of it. She says, I need to not be this sad sack worrywart. So
Well, it helps that it's gone. That literally
house
the
is gone,
remembrance, everything is gone where it happened. The people are gone.
There's nothing left for her, basically. She can go have a fresh start.
Yeah. I'm an advocate for such things. Not burning your house down.
Get the insurance money.
But fresh starts.
Wow.
Anyway.
You're going full Jersey there.
What?
Burning the house down for the insurance money. So then so she remembers earlier in the book, if you remember, that Cambridge tried to get her to move overseas with him to France. She consents, and she does. Well, while she's gone, Cambridge, sort of hand wave this, but he gets a meeting between Carwin and Pleyel, conveniently, and Carwin spills the beans to Pleyel, clears the air, tells him, no, Clara's fine, it was all me, dude. I don't know how Pleyel didn't kill him in the moment, but, it patches things up. So Clara starts to write to Pleyel. They become pen pals. Playen pals. And then, I was trying to make pen pals and Pleyel. It didn't quite work. But Pleyel has married, if you remember his previous...
Dead, not dead.
His dead, not dead. She faked her death. Well, he marries her, and they're living up in Boston, living the life. But, so Clara, being the nice homewrecker that she is, says, hey, you know what, man? I loved you. It's cool. At the time, I couldn't tell you, but now that we're just friends, I can admit that,
I could tell you all of these details that I couldn't tell someone I was in love with, but since
we're just friends, it's cool. Right. Good job looking up your ex on Facebook there, Clara.
Yep.
So then conveniently, the Baroness dies in childbirth. I'm sure
it's
Pleyel had nothing to do with it, right?
It's the next paragraph. I love it. It's
yes.
In my letters to him, I made no secret of my former sentiments. This was a theme on which I could talk without painful, though not without delicate emotion. The knowledge which I should never have imparted to a lover, I felt little scruple communicated to a friend. A year and a half elapsed when Teresa was snatched from him by death.
Yeah. So, lucky me, I get to marry him now. So yeah, Pleyel sells everything. He moves to France. He marries Clara. Nice happy ending for her.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! And that. And then Carwin, they say, he'll escape justice from the guy that was hunting him because he'll just go live in rural PA. It's cool. Nobody will find him.
Yeah, he's on a farm in Pennsylvania where I'm sure all he does is reflect upon his wrongdoings. Right. He feels terrible, and that's punishment enough.
Right, exactly.
The reflection or the rural PA? I don't know.
Shout out to Adams or Perry County or something, Just go hang out there. They'll never find you, man. Bucks, they'll never find you. It's fine. Well, that brings us to the end of the book. Or so you think, because we still have to tie up what happened to Louisa's family.
I was dying to know of these tertiary characters. What happened?
These people we haven't mentioned in 20 chapters.
I was like, who?
Yeah, exactly.
Who, what now?
So, if you don't remember, the other person that Wieland killed was the girl that they had adopted as part of the family. Well, it turns out, if you remember way back, there was that guy, Major Stewart, who was visiting because he was a friend of Mrs. Baton's, And then turns out he had had a child, but it was this girl. It was Louisa Conway. And so they reunited. And of course, Wieland kills her in a very brutal manner. It says, no lineament of her face remained. Like he smashed her to bits. Well, were you wondering what happened to the rest of the family? Well, here's what...
You weren't?
You weren't?
Well...
No, we're going to tell you. So anyway...
Happy birthday to you.
Right.
Surprise.
So while her dad... And this goes on for some time, by the way, if you're not actually...
It's so long.
Major Stewart was... When he was in the military, he gets a rival named Maxwell. And so Maxwell starts, talking behind Stewart's back to people. And so, of course, Stewart needs his... reputation expunged and challenges Maxwell to a duel. Well, then they have their duel. Maxwell's wounded, and he goes home. Well, then when he's home, he ends up... and we just lost power here. And it just came back on. Look at that. So Maxwell marries a woman for some money, but then they kind of break up, right? So then Maxwell thinks, I'm going to get back at Stewart. I'm going to bang his wife. So, and I totally have lost Mare because my power went out, so she is completely frozen. So I'm just going to keep going, I think, and I guess she'll catch back up once my internet comes back. Anyway, so he's going to sleep with Maxwell, or Maxwell's going to sleep with Stewart's wife, so they start making friends. So I guess Stewart figures, let's let bygones be bygones. I want to be friends with Maxwell now. And he tells his wife, hey, go ahead and be friends with Maxwell, this guy I shot or wounded with a sword or whatever in a duel. She does. She falls in love with him. Ends up, I guess they don't actually do anything. But anyway, it's still kind of bad. Well, anyway, Maxwell gets tired of this little game he was playing with Stewart's wife, so he ditches her. Well, now, of course, Stewart's wife no longer loves Stewart because she's fallen in love with Maxwell. Well, then she gets a letter from Maxwell's wife, who he doesn't love anyway, and tells her all about her. This makes her, Stewart's wife, extremely upset, so she jets out of there. Anyway, so eventually she dies, and then Maxwell's wife tells Stewart what happened. So now all of this turns out that this Maxwell guy is out in where Clara and her uncle are living, and so they know him. So Maxwell, he even tried to marry Clara, but Clara's like, nah, I'm not into that, right? Well, so happens he's visiting when Stewart shows up, and he's like, hey, man, what are you doing? Come talk to me. Let's chat, buddy. They go out into the other room, and they're going to have a duel. Well, it's going to be the next day or whatever, right? So Stewart then hangs out. It's late. He's like, I got to go back to where I'm staying. Bad move. He goes, somebody jumps him and kills him. Unknown who does it. Could have been Maxwell. Could have been one of Maxwell's buddies. I don't know. Anyway, Clara and her uncle say, you know what, Maxwell, we're done with you. So now, Luis's parents are dead, and so that's all because of Maxwell. And so now Clara, of course, is like tying this together with what happened to her and Carwin, because, Carwin was the author of her family's downfall, just like Maxwell was the author of Stewart and Luisa's downfall. Anyway, so that is the craziness that has happened. And I think in all that interim, I think my internet has come back up and I can reconnect with Mare. Let's see in a moment. This will make for excellent video podcasting. I may have to cut this portion. Oh, hey, look, everyone. Mare's back. I got the power back. So, Mare, while you were gone, I just kept going with the Stewart and Maxwell story. So that's what we've got.
Of course you did.
We've got a ton of Stewart and Maxwell story content.
That's
so
great.
Do you want to talk at all about this crazy extra story tacked onto the end just so we know what happened to Louisa?
I didn't love it. maybe we could save that for the wrap. But
Yeah.
n- I didn't feel like anything was tied up for me. I felt like now I'm in a new story. What
Yes.
I I don't know.
I mean, I think obviously, Brown is trying to make some parallels between Maxwell and Carwin. Someone,
Hmm.
messing up someone else's family and kind of inserting
Hmm.
themselves. But I don't know. I don't exactly quite know the point. I was reading a little bit of analysis, and we can save it for the wrap, kind of why he threw that in there at the end, or why some people think he threw it in there at the
Hmm.
end. Um, but overall, I thought it was just kind of crazy that we're just going to jump to that at the end and
Yeah, I was
go with
not left
this.
wondering. I mean, in the beginning, I was like, okay, interesting, Louisa, I accept it. Because if you read enough of this old literature like this, coincidence happens.
Sure,
Oh, here I am. Suddenly I get out of my carriage at the exact moment that my best friend arrives in my city in
sure.
Frankenstein. Charles Dickens, constantly people are meeting up. Uh, Even in Bronte's, it's like, oh, Jane Eyre accidentally meets who becomes the love of her life in the middle of a field far from home. It's like, what? Anyway, coincidence happens or weird things. And I'm just like, okay, that's how this goes. I was not curious as to like the entire backstory. It feels like
Right.
this was like a kill your darling he should have killed. He should have cut this out and not
Yes.
kept it. I don't know.
Yeah. Just tack a little bit of 27 onto the end of 26 and end the book at
Yeah,
chapter 26. He didn't. Yeah. He didn't really stick the landing on this one, if you ask me.
no. And did you, while you were gone, I like they make it seem like I was gone. I was here.
I was here. I was here.
I was here.
Okay.
Did you talk about the last paragraph to yourself without me?
Not specifically. No. I just kind of did the story. What do you want to talk about the last paragraph?
Yeah.
Up here.
I mean, how this talk about sticking versus not sticking the landing. He says, I leave you to moralize on this tale. And then he gives you what the moral is, or what he thinks the moral is, which basically is just a big paragraph of victim blaming, if you ask me. He says, you know, that virtue should become the victim of treachery is no doubt a mournful consideration, but it will not escape your notice that the evils of which Carwin and Maxwell, so maybe he threw that in there to have more than one example,
Right.
like
Yeah.
not just Carwin, he has Maxwell, were the authors owed their existence to the errors of their sufferers. So not had if everyone else hadn't messed up the way they messed up, then these two people couldn't have destroyed their lives, which I feel like is really unfair.
It's the trope of if people will just talk to each other, the movie won't happen, right? Like if you
Right?
just, if Stuart's wife says, "Hey, yo, I'm starting to have feelings for this Maxwell cat," and Stuart can be like, "Oh, you are really? Well, why? Well, dear, you're not." If they had open communication, well, none of that would have happened, right? And if Wieland like would, I don't know, go talk to his parish priest and be like, "Dude, God's telling me to kill my family." They're like, no, no, he's not, man. Chill out." Like,
No, he's not.
seriously, I can guarantee that one. Or, if Plael is like, "Hey, I heard you talking to Carwin," and I was like, "No, I was here last night. What are you talking about?" I can,
Yeah.
all this could have been avoided instead of, people just assuming and going off on their tangents. So yeah, he is, I guess, victim blaming, but also saying like, man, people are stupid. Maybe that's the cautionary tale for us. Like, don't jump to conclusions. Like, go verify things before you are also the author of your own suffering.
Yeah, everybody talked about, well, also don't put people on a pedestal, but like everyone put Clara on this huge, huge, enormous pedestal. She's just the best of all women, and her brother did it, and Pliel did it, and then never said a word to her when she fell off of it in their own minds. Like Pliel spoke about how everything he heard went against everything he knew about her. And so he didn't
Right.
question what he thought he was hearing. I mean, maybe we never heard Carwin's impression. Maybe it's spot
It's quite
on.
good, yeah.
I mean, when I do impressions of my husband, they're always really spot on.
It sounds just, I can verify. Yeah, I'll vouch for that. Sounds just like him.
Sounds just like,
Yeah. Perfect. Perfect
but
impression.
but everything went against every bit of evidence and information that they have, and yet they chose to believe it. I mean, I can't think of any modern parallels
None.
at all.
Not at all.
Anyway, so we end with victim blaming. Hurrah!
Yeah. Or I think it's potential victim cautionary tailing. Like, we are potential
Oh,
victims.
it's not
And
very clickbaity. No
no,
one's
it's
going to click
not.
on that.
No. I think he is telling us, like, hey, don't jump to conclusions. Like, if Stuart's wife had crushed her disastrous passion in the bud, driven the seducer from her presence, if Stuart had not admitted to the spirit of absurd revenge, like, just take a chill pill, everybody. Like, chill out. Don't try to jump on Maxwell. Like, just hang out with your husband. Like, don't try to kill somebody just because he seduced your wife. I mean, come on, man. So, like, just
In
relax.
general, don't kill your family just because God told you to.
Right.
Maybe he did,
Well, we don't even know what
but
the initial slight or offense that Maxwell made to Stewart that caused the initial duel.
that always seems unimportant in the
Right.
narrative. It's
Yeah.
like some unintended slight happened, and
Right.
then, and I mean,
Or even if it did, just, like, man, be the bigger man and go, like, whatever, I don't care. Like, cool, man. You're talking bad about me? Sure. I don't
that
care.
takes such, dude. If that's like something that I could instill in my kids, like that kind of confidence to let something, water off a duck's back and all that,
Yeah.
that would be incredible.
It
Versus
takes a lot of
the
maturity
deep,
and a lot of time.
yeah, the deep hurt that kids feel when they've been slighted,
Yeah.
or if they think someone doesn't maybe not, I shouldn't generalize because not all kids are that way. The way I was, the way my son is, like that deep hurt if you think somebody doesn't like you or care for you or they said something that they whatever.
Yeah.
That's why confidence is so attractive in people
It is, because it's like,
because not everybody
yeah,
has it, and it
yeah.
seems like, oh God, that would be nice to be that way.
That, exactly. Exactly. Anyway. All right, well, that brings us to the end of Wieland. We are going to wrap this thing up next episode, so
Hmm.
tune in next time and we will discuss this whole book, kind of what we thought of it, the overarching themes, how it ended, bizarrely. And Mare will reveal to us our next book, which I do not know what it is, so it's going to be just as much a surprise to me as it will be to all you listeners. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Any last thoughts on these chapters here, Mare, before we wrap this thing up?
No, but I'm looking forward to the wrap up. I'm trying to gather my thoughts for the wrap
Yes,
up.
yes, yes, definitely. Well, it is definitely hot out there, folks.
Mm.
So, make sure you're hitting the pool and the splash pad. You can find us on social medias, sort of. We are at CYST Pod on Facebook, Instagram. We're kind of, I don't know, we're not really on any other thing because
Mm-mm.
Twitter, X, whatever Musk is
I
doing,
don't
that
know.
guy, we're done with that.
It's
It
embarrassing.
is completely irrational that the richest man in the world doesn't have the confidence to just let slights go by. Dun dun
Mm-mm.
dun. Look at that. Maybe he should read Wieland. We technically do have a
Can he
Mastodon
read?
account. Maybe. We do have a Mastodon account at .social/cystpod. So if you have Mastodon, I don't know, start following us. I don't have any followers there, but we'll start posting stuff there if people start following it. But you can also send us an email, cystpod
There you
at
go.
gmail.com. Keep it old school, and we will talk to you guys next time.
Peace.